and had a crappy year. And the Bears get in this draft their quarterback of the future, a top level wide receiver before Carolina could even pick in this draft. And it's just like, sometimes these guys, they outwit themselves.
It's definitely true. And, I think it's really funny how, Justin Fields comes into the league and he has nobody. And then they draft Caleb Williams and he's got, the Keenan Allen from
Yeah.
the Chargers. He's got DJ Moore, one of the top receivers in the league. He's got Rome Odunze, one of the top receivers in this draft.
Yeah.
He's got Cole Kmet. They picked up another tight end in free agency. They've upgraded the offensive line. It's like, everybody's like, oh, this guy sucks. And it's like, well, it also kind of comes down to the situation. I mean, we and you've talked about this at nauseum. What team you go to
Right.
and where that team is depends a lot on these guys' success. But yeah, the Carolina Panthers mortgaged their future to go up and get their guy. And they got the wrong guy because
Right.
it was proven that the gentleman taken at number 2, CJ Stroud, is a better pro quarterback, at least as of right now. And, they mortgaged their future for a guy who didn't really produce and got the coach fired in year 1. So you got to be careful about moving up. Look at other times that teams have moved up and it hasn't worked out. The Jets moved up to get Zach Wilson. The 49ers moved up to get Trey Lance. I mean, you're not guaranteed of hitting a home run just because you decide to move up in the draft.
Exactly. And that's what we talked about coming into. And this is why, as fans, we should recognize that although the draft is very, very important for building a team, maybe the most important, it's not the whole structure you have to put together to putting a team together. There's free agency, there's trades. There's also retaining players that have proven themselves. So I mean, it's a whole lot. It's not just, oh, we get the number 1 draft choice. We'll get this quarterback and we'll be in the Super Bowl in 2 years. That just doesn't work out. It's not that way. But Chicago does look good. It looks like I still, like I said, Caleb Williams, he won a Heisman. He comes from a strong program with a good coach. As you pointed out, he didn't do it. He was never behind center. We're going to have to see how his game translates in the pros. And
well, I love how everyone glosses over that it's not like he tore it up this year. I
right.
mean, he was not good. The team he was on struggled mightily, and he struggled, especially compared to his numbers the year previous. Now, he jacked his numbers way up against some of the inferior opponents, but in 2023, when USC played good football teams, Caleb Williams did not perform very well, and everyone kind of just ignores that because he was already kind of ignited as the knighted as the number 1 pick in the 2024 draft. But I'm not sure he earned that last year.
No, I agree with you. And it's the old he and no matter how good a quarterback, no matter who was better prepared to be a pro quarterback than Peyton Manning, being Archie's son, being raised in a football family. I mean, he was probably studying tape from the time he was 5 years old. His father was teaching him the right way to do things. And in his first year, he basically sucked. So, I mean, it's like you got to know that no matter how good Caleb Williams might be 5 years from now, no matter how good he was 2 years ago, he's going to struggle this year when he comes in. It's a learning experience. So it would be, I caution the Bear fans to sit there and say, don't think you're leapfrogging over the Packers and Lions yet. Give it time.
Yeah.
And let's talk about the second draft choice, Jaden Daniels. Now, he's the Washington has been very busy. I want to hear your opinion of what Washington's been doing this offseason. And what do you think with Dan Quinn, the new coach coming in? Give me your assessment of what do you think with Jaden Daniels, where he's going.
Well, I like Jaden Daniels. Unlike Caleb Williams, he had a tremendous year in 2023, and games where they played good teams, he played amazing. And I liked him. I thought he graded out better than Caleb Williams did. And I like him as a player. I like him as a prospect. Is he ready to go right away, immediately? I don't know about that. Time will tell on that one. But I do like I mean, first off, Washington hit a home run when they got rid of Dan Snyder. So
Right.
that was probably the first and foremost, step in this whole process was getting rid of Dan Snyder and getting new ownership in there, and they took care of that. And I think that was move number one. But that now they've got their quarterback. I mean, I like what they've done at the coaching. Not just Dan Quinn, but I like the assistants that they've hired. Some of the guys that he's brought in to his staff. I like that, and some of the moves they've made, bringing guys in. Austin Eckler. Now they've got two homegrown wide receivers in Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson. They brought in Zach Ertz. They've upgraded the offensive line by bringing in Andrew Wiley. They brought in Bobby Wagner to kind of run the defense. They brought in Jeremy Chin, the hard-hitting safety / linebacker, from the Panthers to fill in on defense. So, this is a team, in my opinion, that's heading in the right direction.
What do you think about their second round draft choice, the guy from Illinois, the defensive lineman?
I don't know as much about him, to be honest with you. I do know that Illinois had a phenomenal phenomenal defense in this past season, and I know obviously he was a part of it, but time will tell if he gets on the field right away. I doubt it, just because they have some pretty strong defensive linemen. Now they did lose 2 defensive ends, but as far as at the tackle position goes, they're pretty stout. And I believe who you're talking about is Jerzon Newton.
Yeah.
As I think who you meant. This is a kid who, did some good things, obviously, at Illinois. He's a big kid, 6'2", 304, pretty highly rated. A lot of people had him as a late, first round pick. And to get him, as the 4th pick in the second round, I think is pretty stellar. A lot of people have compared him to Javon Hargrave, so that's pretty high praise. And in 2023, he was a first-team All-American. He was Big Ten Conference Defensive Player of the Year. He was first-team All-Big Ten. He was finalist for the Nagurski Trophy. And, he led the Fighting Illini with 7.5 sacks. That's pretty freaking amazing. But the biggest thing that I liked about Newton overall, he blocked 4 kicks last year. For a guy who's 304 pounds, blocking 4 kicks is pretty damn amazing.
It's a damn record.
Yeah.
How about New England? They took Drake May. No real surprise there. We knew they were going to take one of the quarterbacks. But you look at their draft. Were you surprised when they took Joe Milton from Tennessee in the 6th round?
Well, I think it says a little bit of something about Drake May, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. I mean, why would they keep Bailey Zappi around? Why would they then go back in the 6th round and draft Joe Milton if they were 100% sold on Drake May? I mean, I not that I don't think they like him, but I think they probably liked him 3rd. And I think they probably tried to move up. That didn't work. And their other option was taking Drake May or trading down. And I don't think they really – I think they took calls, as far as moving down in this draft. But, when they looked at it, they were like, let's just stay here and take our guy and see what happens. But I got to be honest with you. Overall, I didn't love their draft. I mean, Jalen Polk, who they drafted in the 2nd round, I mean, he was the 3rd best wide receiver on Washington.
Right.
So you're taking the 3rd best wide receiver on a team and bringing him into the NFL. I don't know about that. Caden Wallace, the offensive tackle, he was the 2nd best offensive tackle on Penn State's team. So, some of these guys, I mean, I liked Layden Robinson, the guard from A&M, but, some of these other guys I wasn't really impressed with. My two favorite picks of theirs was Joe Milton in the 6th round at 193 and Jaheim Bell in the 7th round. I like their 6th and 7th round picks a little bit better than their first, but I think Gerard Mayo is going to do it the right way. I think he's going to bring all these guys in, and he's going to have an open competition. Things have not been going the Patriot way, so to speak, in the last few years, and I think it's time to reset the board. And that's only going to be done by playing the guys that earn it. And they brought in KJ Osborne, they've got Kendrick Bourne back. They brought back Hunter Henry. They've got Jacoby Brissett. So right now you've got Brissett, you've got Drake May, you've got Bailey Zappi, you've got Joe Milton. I mean, they've got 4 quarterbacks. So I would think between the 4 of those guys, somebody is going to be able to perform.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the thing about it is, it would just struck me when I saw the Joe Milton pick. Is like, what was the last quarterback that the Patriots took in the 6th round? Oh yeah, some guy named Brady, and it was the 199th pick. So there may be some good karma in that pick if Drake May kind of turns out to be a bust. So we'll see what happens there. Let's go to the New York football.
One last comment on that. If you go and look at the numbers and you look at the tape of last season, there wasn't a ton of difference between Joe Milton and Drake May. I mean, Drake May threw for a few more yards, but honestly, they were behind in a lot of games, and they threw the football around like crazy. Tennessee was primarily a running team, and Joe Milton was one of their runners, and he ran the football quite a bit. But when you look, I think Drake May had like 25 touchdowns. Joe Milton had 20. He had around 3,000 yards. Drake May had like 3,400. So honestly, the level of distinction between those two guys isn't as wide as some people think.
As the draft would make it look. All right, let's go to the New York Giants. Malik Neighbors, not disappointing in the pick. I like the pick. It's just, the Giants, I think it's not a question of it's the quality of who they pick at every level now. There's so many holes. Malik Neighbors fills a definite hole. They need a game breaker. They need a wide receiver. They need to stretch the field more. And it's all going to come down to Daniel Jones's health there. I really didn't have a good feeling after the top 3 quarterbacks went out. All the rest of them, maybe, we'll get to that later. But Neighbors, Newbin, they picked because, they had the hole at safety. Andrew Phillips, I don't know. I hear some good things about him as a cornerback. I'm not sure, though. Theo Thompson, they definitely need to address their tight end situation once and for all. They've been playing around with this situation for, since Jeremy Shockey left. I'm intrigued about Tyrone Tracy more as a kick returner than as a runner from scrimmage. And I don't know much about the UCLA linebacker. I got to be truthful. What do you think about the Giant draft?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I really like Neighbors, and I like Newbin. I like their the 2 first picks quite a bit. I think Newbin was the best safety in the draft, and to get him 47th overall, I think was huge. Neighbors, obviously, I think was the 2nd best wide receiver in this draft, so I liked that pick a lot. Phillips is an interesting guy as well from Kentucky. They had a pretty solid defense, and this kid's got the measurables. He's about 5'11", a little bit undersized height-wise, but he's 190 pounds. This is a kid who, learned under the Stoops. He ran a 4.48 40, so he definitely has the speed. He jumped over a 42-inch vertical leap. And he's played a lot of football. He played in 4 games in 2020. He played 9 games in 2021, 13 games in 2022, and 12 games in 2023. So, I think he's going to be able to get on the field pretty quickly just because of his experience and because of his, knowledge of playing the position. And I liked him. I was kind of surprised, honestly, with all their holes that they only had, 6 picks?
Yeah.
I was kind of like, how do you only have 6 picks in this draft when you have so many needs? I mean, they had 6 needs and they had 6 picks, and they obviously couldn't address them all. But I do like Theo Johnson, the tight end out of Penn State.
I think he's a pretty good player. And to be honest with you, I don't know a ton about the last two guys, Tracy and Musawa, the linebacker of UCLA. I know UCLA's defense was top notch last year, but I'm not 100% sold on that kid just because I don't know a ton about him. I mean, this is all going to come down to how healthy is Daniel Jones? What does he look like? Can he get back to anything like the form he had 2 years ago? If he can't, can Drew Lock, look like he did at times last year? And if not, this coach and this GM going to be looking for a new job because I don't think the franchise is going to sit around and wait for them to figure it out.
No, they've already given them their extra year. The New York Jets, they go out and get the tackle from Penn State. Definitely offensive line was going to be their biggest need. But they bypassed going for the tight end. They picked I don't know if you know much about the wide receiver from Western Kentucky. I think the most intriguing pick of the Jets was taking Jordan Travis as a quarterback, maybe for the future in the 5th round. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I like that. I like that pick just because this kid got so much better. If you look at him from his freshman year till last year until he got hurt, he was a completely different player and really got better. So I liked him. Fashanu, the offensive tackle. I mean, I think you have to go back to last year and 4 plays into the season. I mean, it wasn't just, that 4th play. It was play 1, play 2, play 3. Aaron Rodgers was running for his life.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think they had to do something about, trying to protect him. If you're not going to be able to protect him, he's not going to survive. So they're going for it. They're all in this year. That's one of the reasons why I thought they might take, Bowers with that first pick because he needs more targets. But honestly, let's be honest, their line sucks worse than their wide receivers. So I think that's why they made this move. They've got Tyron Smith, who they brought in. They've got Morgan Moses, as we talked about last time we were on the show. But they've got, another guy to bring into the mix. So if one of those two gets hurt or if both of them get hurt, they can punch out Vera Tucker to the right tackle, and they can maybe insert the young draft pick at left tackle or vice versa. So I like what they've got at the offensive line. And let's be honest, they've got Garrett Wilson, who's one of the best wide receivers in all of football. They brought in Mike Williams. They still have Alan Lazard. They've got Tyler Conklin and Jeremy Rucker and Uboa. So I think they're pretty comfortable at tight end.
All right, now let's go. We'll go back to the top of the draft now. I just wanted to get those guys out of the way and make sure we get some time to them. Arizona Cardinals, no shock. Marvin Harrison Jr., maybe the best all-around athlete in the draft, definitely the best wide receiver. But for Arizona, how much does that tweak, and what do you think about the rest of their picks?
Yeah, I think first off, he may be the best player in this draft. Overall, I think he was. I think just the overall need at quarterback is why we saw 6 quarterbacks go in the top 12 picks because these teams just don't have one. So if they did, I mean, obviously you're not going to be at the top of the draft if you don't need a quarterback.
Yeah.
But let's say somebody fell into the number 1 pick. I think Marvin Harrison was probably the best player. I loved their second pick, Darius Robinson out of Missouri. This guy's the real deal. Not only is he a good outside pass rusher, but he played defensive tackle his first 3 years, Joe.
Wow.
And he just moved to DN this past year. And so he's got the ability to play inside. He's got the ability to play outside. There's really nothing that this guy can't do. And I've seen him up close and personal, and he's legit. So I really like that pick. And then I also I liked their third pick, Max Melton out of Rutgers. He's one of the best corners in the draft. They got Trey Benson out of Florida State. I really feel like this team is going in the right direction. But once, just like we said with the Giants, it's going to come down to Kyler Murray and whether he can play a full season and whether or not he can get it done. I will say big big pick, in my opinion, was getting Xavier Thomas, 5-year guy from Clemson in the 5th round, number 138 overall. I feel like he is a really, really good football player, and he may surprise some people.
And let's see quickly. We get the Chargers. They go out and get maybe the best offensive lineman in the draft. It depends. Joe Alt out of Notre Dame. So they're building the defensive line. They already have their quarterback of the future. They just got to get him some updated weapons. And we'll see what Harbaugh's vision is. What did you think about the rest of his first draft?
It's hard for me to sit here and talk favorably about Jim Harbaugh because,
He sucks.
He's just a terrible, terrible human being. And honestly, I'm not sure I'm in love with this draft overall. Once again, like the Patriots, my favorite 2 picks were probably two of their last picks. Round 5, pick 5, number 140 overall, Cam Hart, the corner out of Notre Dame. I love him.
Right.
I can't believe he lasted that long because I just thought he was one of the best players, best corners in all of college football last year. And I was kind of shocked that he lasted that long. And then Brendan Rice, Jerry Rice's son, who was originally at Colorado and then transferred to USC. You get Jerry Rice's son at 225 overall. I think that's good value. Ladd McConkey was kind of a head scratcher to me. This is a guy who obviously, he's undersized, to say the least. He's not that big of a guy. And then last year, he really struggled with injuries. He only had 23 catches on the entire season. He had some good production the year before. I just think, he really sold it with he ran a 4.39 40 at the pro day and 10 foot 4 inch broad jump. But, this guy, they list him at 6 feet 180, and I think that's stretching it. That's pushing it to me, man. So he's just not my favorite. He's not my favorite receiver in the draft. He's kind of like the kid that came out of Clemson a few years ago. I think he's more slotted to be a kind of a slot receiver.
And then we got the Tennessee Titans, J.C. Latham, offensive tackle out of Alabama. Let's see if we get the rest of their draft. I don't know. What did you think about their draft?
I like Latham a lot. He is just a massive, massive man. And if you want to get back to, Tennessee Titan football, you got to get this offensive line back in order. And they took the kid from, was it Northwestern last year?
Yep.
And J.C. Latham this year. Between those two guys, surely they can make things better up front. And then I really liked 4th round, number 106 overall, Cedric Gray. He, in my opinion, is one of the best linebackers in the draft, and I liked that pickup. But I mean, their whole thing is, offense has been their issue the last couple of years. I mean, they've still played pretty good defense. They just haven't been able to score a ton of points. And that's what kind of scares me still. I know they went out and signed Calvin Ridley and they gave him a ton of money, but that don't make him good. That just makes him rich. So We'll see if he can, get back to what he once was. And, then obviously Derrick Henry's gone and Tony Pollard, to me, was kind of a bust last year in Dallas. He took over he took the keys to the car from Zeke Elliott, and then he ran the car into a wall. Right. In my opinion, and just didn't really perform that well. So, this team's going to go as far as Will Levis takes them, and hopefully the combination of Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears, and Hassan Haskins, the 3 of them, can come close to making up for the loss of Derrick Henry.
And now the most controversial pick of the night, Michael Penix Jr. going to Atlanta. With the fact that they picked up Kirk Cousins and paid him $100 million for the next 2 years, a lot of arguments about this pick. To me, it kind of makes sense in a way. Although, as one broadcaster said, and he kind of explained it to me, kind of in a way. We know Atlanta they went out and got Kirk Cousins. They need defense, but when you got Penix sitting there and you're going to have Kirk Cousins, hopefully if he recovers from his Achilles okay, you're going to be set at quarterback for the next 2 years, anyways. And you feel that you can pick up enough in the draft to supplement your defense, it kind of looks like that might make sense because he can sit behind Cousins for 2 years, ideally. And if not, you have your quarterback of the future again.
Yeah, I mean, I hear people coming up with all this stuff trying to rationalize this pick, but the guy that was the most confused of all was Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
He's like, this team goes out and gives me $200 million and they draft my replacement before I've taken a snap. I mean, this isn't Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. This isn't Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love. Those guys had played 10, 12 years for the franchise before they drafted this guy. This guy hasn't taken one snap for the Falcons, and they're already drafting his replacement. I mean, Joe, that doesn't make any sense. And I love Michael Penix. I had him rated way higher than a lot of other people did, and obviously the Falcons did too. But you're not going to sell me that this is a great pick for number 8 overall when you've got tons of needs and you're drafted. You can only play one quarterback at a time, Joe. And if you've already decided that Kirk Cousins is your quarterback and he's going to start, well, then why the hell are you wasting the number 8 pick overall on a kid that's not going to play? It doesn't make any sense to me. And honestly, I didn't really like their draft at all from top to bottom.
Well, I mean, I just think that, when I was thinking about it and someone said that to me and said, look, in 2 years, if they're drafting a quarterback and it bottoms out underneath Kirk Cousins, how do you know you're going to get a Michael Penix, a chance at a Michael Penix? Even though Michael Penix is coming with some doubters too. I mean, two surgeries on one knee, some shoulder problems. But people say that his arm talent is extremely rare to find. I don't know how realistic that is. A lot of people, Jeff George had a great arm talent too. Didn't really translate to the NFL. But to me, I mean, we'll see. A lot of head scratching goes on down in Atlanta when you think about some of the moves they made. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think his arm talent's great, but if he's not playing, what the hell does it matter? I mean, you're sitting there at number 8, and there has not been a defensive player taken yet. I mean, not one guy. I mean, we're talking about this draft, and you got all offensive players going to number 8, and you haven't, not one guy has come off the board, and you go take a quarterback when you just spent $200 million on a quarterback. I mean, there's no, you always say make it make sense. There's no way you're going to make it make sense to me when you're talking about. I mean, I guess this coach, Raheem Morris, I guess he's got a little bit of time and he's got a little bit of a long leash built up because he just got hired. So maybe he was instrumental in picking this. But I can tell you it's weird from my opinion because you got the previous coach was there for 3-4 years and had no quarterbacks. And now you get a new coach and you give him 2. That doesn't make any sense.
That is Atlanta. Let me get back to the draft here. All right. So we got him. Then we got JJ McCarthy going to Minnesota via the Jets pick, I guess. They needed a quarterback once Kirk Cousins left. I don't know how this is going to translate. They have a good young coach, a supposed quarterback whisperer, but you've been tearing apart for the last 3 years the moves they made. I mean, outside of a great wide receiver, where are they going to build with JJ McCarthy? What are they going to put around him? We know if he's got a super team around him, he could do something.
Well, that's true, but he doesn't have a super team around him. I will say that at least this guy didn't screw the draft up entirely, and he got Dallas Turner at number 17. I like that. I couldn't believe that he actually did something that I could point at and be impressed with, because this guy hasn't done anything that I've been impressed with since he took over as the general manager. They fired Rick Spielman, who took them to the NFC Championship game, hired this D-bag, and they haven't shown any signs of life since. So, is Rick Spielman my favorite guy in the world? Not really, but I don't know how you can fire him and then bring this guy in and act like he's doing a great job, because he's not. So, I liked Kyrie Jackson. Honestly, that was actually a pretty good pick too, the 4th round. But, after McCarthy and Turner, they didn't have another pick until number 8 in the 4th round. So they had
number 10, number 17, and then not till number 8 in the 4th round, because they traded up to get McCarthy, and then they traded up to get Turner. So they took away all their 3rd rounders to get those 2 guys. I tell you this, you better hit on both of them, because if both those guys don't turn out to be stars, you're going to be kicking yourself in the butt because you burned both your 3rd round draft picks on those 2 guys, just moving up a couple spots when you could have probably stayed where you were and got them. I mean, I don't know.
Probably after that pick, they went to Chili's and watched the draft from there.
Yeah, for a couple days.
Yeah. Let's look at Bo Nix. Not surprising Sean Payton went out and got a quarterback. Not surprising at all. How do you see any, and I'm not trying to put pressure on you to say where this guy's going to be, but do you see anything in Bo Nix's makeup that brings Drew Brees to mind? Because Drew Brees is Peyton's quarterback. That's, all these, no matter what these coaches say, they all have a favorite quarterback. They all have a quarterback that checks all the boxes for him. Drew Brees was the perfect quarterback for the things that Sean Payton wanted to do. And that's what he's looking for.
Yeah. And, honestly, if any of these guys could potentially step in and play right away, it's got to be Bo Nix, man. He's played in college for like 9 years. He played for Auburn, for 3 years. He's played for Oregon for 2 years. He's been the starter the entire time. This guy's a coach's son. He's a former quarterback's son. This guy, he knows football. He's able to make good reads. And, they interviewed Sean Payton. I actually watched, this is kind of off topic, but I watched the Pat McAfee.
I heard about this. About this. Tell me about it.
This was my buddy, Marcus. He's like, man, he came over. We always watch the draft together. It's kind of a yearly annual thing that we watch the draft together. And this year he's like, I said, what broadcast you want to watch? You want to watch NFL? You want to watch ESPN? Yahoo Sports? What do you want to do? He's like, really? I want to watch Pat McAfee. And I said, Pat McAfee, not my favorite guy. He goes, not me either. He goes, but he's having Bill Belichick on. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah. He goes, we got to check it out. So we turned it on and we watched almost the entire draft with the Pat McAfee broadcast. And it was stellar. I mean, first off, Bill Belichick, who the hell knows more than him about, evaluating talent in the NFL, talking about, what guys have done, needs. I mean, he was amazing. And it was really, really cool to see him kind of relaxed, and in this mode where he was jovial, he was joking around. I mean, he was still Bill Belichick, and he looked at you sometimes like you were a damn idiot, but he was hilarious. He was intelligent. He was funny. It was great. And I loved watching it. And they had this guy, they called him Mad Mel, and he sounded exactly like Mel Kiper. And he was wearing this purple suit. And he just made these I'll have to send you a clip of it because it was hilarious.
No, I'll have to look it up on YouTube. I'll have to check that out.
Look it up. It was pretty funny. But the point of the whole thing was they had Sean Payton on because he knows Bill Belichick. They had everybody that was anybody come on their broadcast because they had Bill Belichick, and Bill called him or texted him and said, hey, come on, will you come on with us? And everybody said, of course, if Bill wants me, I'll come on. And, I have to admit, Sean Payton had done his homework on Bo Nix. I mean, he knew everything about this kid. He went through all these stats from college football season last year, and Bo Nix was he was number one in a lot of them. I mean, this kid, you can say what you want about him, but he was the Pac-12 Player of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year. He was a third-team All-American. He won the Campbell Trophy, the academic Heisman. He finished third in voting for the Heisman. He was a finalist for the Maxwell Cup and the Davey O'Brien and Johnny Unitas Golden Arms Awards. He set a single-season NCAA record for completion percentage at 77%. He led all of college football with 45 passing touchdowns, and he had a school record and only 3 interceptions, and he had a school record of 4,500 yards. Not to mention he started all 14 games and could have made the national championship if they didn't lose to Washington. So, I feel pretty good about the pick after hearing him talk.
I'm gonna have to check that out with Belichick, and that makes a lot of sense. Brock Bowers to the Raiders. The Raiders used a first rounder last year for a tight end, didn't they? Or was it a second rounder?
Yeah, I think it was a second rounder, but I'd have to look that up.
Okay. No doubt Bowers is.
Yes, no, you're right. Michael Mayer
Yeah.
from Notre Dame. He was
Right.
their first round pick last year. So now they
Yeah.
have Mayer and Bowers. I didn't even think about that till you just mentioned it. Now that makes no sense.
Because I mean, now you got yeah, he may be maybe next to Marvin Harrison, the second best football player in this draft. But you already, and this is where you scratch your head with the Raiders. You need a quarterback or so. You need, I don't know. You tell me. They seem to need everything except a wide receiver, and now they have an excess of tight ends.
I didn't even think about that at the time, and I haven't thought about that at all until you just mentioned it, and now that makes absolutely no sense. I mean, Michael Mayer was the number one tight end in the draft last year. He may have not gone in the first round. Yeah, I think you're right. I think he was a second round pick. But all the needs that you have, you've got a quarterback need, you got a cornerback need, you need offensive line help, you need a secondary receiver, and you take Brock Bowers. I guess they're going to play a lot of 12 personnel because they're going to have to. They're probably their best two, pass catching options besides Devontae Adams. Are those two guys, Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer.
I mean, maybe they're thinking they can pull in a Gronk, Aaron Hernandez, if Aaron Hernandez didn't blow up situation with New England, but still with all those needs and a young coach and coaching staff, I don't know. But he had to sign off on it, so we'll see. What else stood out with you in the first round? We talked about the stuff I want to talk about. What did you think of the first round?
In the first round itself, honestly, the 6 quarterbacks, I think, kind of highlights the draft. It just shows you ever since they took away the ridiculous amount of money that the first round quarterbacks got and created this rookie wage scale, it's made people just overvalue quarterbacks coming out in the draft. I mean, we've seen it time and time again. We can go through a list this long. Mitchell Trubisky, Zach Wilson, Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen. I mean, we can name them off. Trey Lance. We could name them off one by one because people just they overvalue this position, ridiculous much. And it's not. They're not. This year is not going to be without failure from one of these guys. And I don't know. Who's going to be the worst out of the group, but I don't think they're all going to succeed. And, there was, a pretty nice run on offensive tackles in this first round, like we had talked about there was going to be. And, I've got to be honest, I think that Cincinnati kind of overshot themselves with this, Amarius Mims. This guy has started 8 games in his college career at Georgia. And, they went out and, I mean, he's a big dude. He's 6'8", 340. And he's long, he's rangy, he can dominate, at the point of attack, but he's played in 8 games. And I don't think you can say that somebody's shown you enough in 8 games that they can get it done. But I think just like every year, certain teams know what the hell they're doing, right? The Pittsburgh Steelers know what they're doing. The Philadelphia Eagles and Howie Roseman, they know what they're doing. The Baltimore Ravens know what they're doing, and it just shows out every year based upon who they pick, and most of the time they stay right where they are and they get the guy that they want. Howie Roseman will move around a little bit more than those other guys, but he certainly ends up getting who he wants. But I think it was interesting that the first defensive player taken was a guy who has had a cervical neck fusion. That just, to me, that kind of blew me away. I mean, I like Latu, the kid out of UCLA, the edge rusher, but he's really not an edge player. I mean, they call him an edge guy. If you go watch his tape, he's more of an interior pass rusher. And so I think it's kind of a hyperbole to call him an edge player because he's not. But he is got some explosion and is an interesting player. But I didn't expect him to go that high with the medical.
All right, you bring up something that just came to mind when you brought that up to me, and I'd love to discuss it with you. What time we got left here? Because we're going to go into this draft through the summer. We'll take team by team. But we went back, and one of the first things I brought up, of course, New York Giants, and like I said, it was solid but not spectacular draft. There's no LT jumping out at me. There's no Eli Manning jumping out at me. There's no Saquon Barkley jumping out at me from this draft. The Giants are in, if not a total rebuild mode, they're in a rebuild mode. I mean, like we said, just the questions outweigh the answers. But what you just brought up, the good thing you brought up about, you talk about the drafts and the guys that know what they're doing. There's a stability in those organizations. So I believe in Dable. I can't say I know enough about Shane, but I believe in Dable. I think that given time, and I mean, not 10 years, not 5 years, but I would definitely give Dable, at least his 2 more years to see what he can do with this team. I don't know if I would pull the trigger on him and pull the ripcord and get him out of here if they have a bad year. I mean, yeah, if they go 2-15 next year, I have no defense for him. But if he's got them playing solid and they're knocking on the door of catching Philadelphia and catching Dallas, I'm just sick of the revolving door of coaches and GMs, because without stability, you get nowhere. And I just think they got to have some patience with these guys. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you switch the coach every year, you switch the GM every 3 years. You're not going to have any stability in your organization because everybody wants to bring in their own guys. So then you're shuffling players in and out, and that's not the way to do it. When you look at the franchises that have had continued extended success, like the Baltimore Ravens, their coach has been there for what, 15 years?
Yeah.
The Pittsburgh Steelers, even longer. The Eagles have been a little bit more trigger happy with their coaching. But Howie Roseman's been, running that team for quite some time, and Lori, the owner, has done a fantastic job running the organization as well. So, I think that there's something to that. But it all starts at the top. Is ownership. What is ownership doing with this team? Are they trying to run the football team, or are they trying to get the right people in place to run the football team? And that's what you want.
Yeah, are they running a football team, or is this a marketing strategy to get the most out of owning a football team?
Right.
It's like, I love the big thing. One thing I always like pick on the Jets about, because every year they unveil their new uniforms. And I go, the Giants have had the same uniform since the 50s. Well, maybe you just stayed in the same uniforms and stopped, making it a fashion show. You'd win more.
Yeah.
But with the little time we got left, we got the NBA playoffs going on right now. Knicks having a bigger struggle than expected with Philadelphia. Of course, not having Julius Randle is a big loss. And I'll tell you, any New York fan who's out there and within my shouting distance, remember 2 years ago when you wanted to get rid of Julius Randle? He sucked. It wasn't worth the money. He wasn't worth this. How much are we missing him right now?
Yeah, they're definitely missing him, and I didn't think they would be doing as well as they are without him. But they're, it's still a struggle. He's kind of the guy that makes everything. I mean, Brunson's the best player on this team, there's no doubt. But Julius Randle's kind of the guy that makes everything go. He's been in New York the longest. He's kind of the dude that this whole team was built around, and his loss is huge. And we said that before the playoffs even started. That being said, they're up 3-2. So it's not over yet. I know things did not go as planned the other night. My sister was there in the Garden, sitting right behind Melo and Patrick Ewing, and she was devastated by the loss, and I understand that. But it's 3-2. They're still winning. They can go in to Philadelphia, the Wells Fargo Center tonight, and wrap this up. So I kind of expect them to do that. Unless they let Embiid go for 50 again, then maybe not. Maybe not.
Maxey has not been a slouch in this playoffs. He's been showing off. Maxey and Brunson. You were too young to remember this, but way back when in the early '80s, the Knicks played the Pistons, and it was Bernard King and Isaiah Thomas go one night after another, going, "Watch this, watch this one."
Yeah,
it was amazing because they were putting up 40 and 50 points a night. So it was an amazing series there. Any other impressions you got from the NBA you want to talk about?
I think the Celtics are looking pretty good. They took care of business. Obviously, it helped a lot having no Jimmy Butler there for the Heat. I mean, the fact that the Heat were able to play as well as they were with no Jimmy is a testament to Eric Spoelstra, who's one of the best coaches in the NBA, maybe one of the best coaches ever in the NBA. He's on that list somewhere, and he did a pretty good job, but he couldn't overcome the loss of their – I mean, he's their franchise guy, Jimmy Butler, and him being gone was a big blow. But the Celtics, they're 64-18. They're 37-4 overall at home. That's pretty damn good. And they took care of business and won 4-1, so now they get to rest a little bit. I think that's huge. The big thing is Jason Tatum going to take the next step? Is he going to be a max contract player, or is he going to be a max player in the playoffs? That's what we need to find out.
How about the LeBron struggles during the playoffs?
Well, LeBron didn't struggle at all.
Yeah.
You can say the Lakers struggled.
Yeah.
LeBron did not struggle. In fact, if you watched the other night when they lost Game 5, 108-106, 2 points, LeBron had 30 points, 9 rebounds, and 11 assists. The problem with the Lakers is we saw it last year. They came on strong when everybody was healthy at the end of the season. They ended up going to the Western Conference Finals. They didn't have enough to get by the Nuggets. You knew it. I knew it. Everyone knew it. They got swept 4-0. Then they go through the offseason and do nothing. And you thought you were going to come back and beat the Nuggets the next year without making the team any better? Obviously not. So I wasn't surprised by that at all. What I am surprised is that somebody who's 40 years old is getting 30 points and a triple-double every night. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable. And, I hope they give him some help so that next year maybe he can win a title, on his way out.
Well, maybe it's just, when you see what he did early in his career, when he took teams that just sucked to the finals, that the expectations are always there with him. Maybe that's where my opinion of that came from. But you're right.
Yeah, but he's 40. He's not 25 years old anymore. I mean, he could put the whole team on his back and carry him to the finals back then. Well, now he's 40 years old. You put the whole team on his back, you're going to hurt his back. He's 40.
And one final note, I mean, who has lost more luster off his reputation than Kevin Durant?
Wow. Nobody.
No.
Nobody. I mean, how do you go and have one of the highest paying rosters in all of basketball? Remember, they fired their coach who had taken them to the Western Conference Finals. They went out and retooled their lineup and brought in Kevin Durant, brought in Bradley Beal. And what do they get? They get jousted, swept 4-0 by the Minnesota Timberwolves. I mean, Kevin Durant can still score, but can Kevin Durant lead a team? No. Can Kevin Durant change a game and make his team better? No. And I think we've learned that. We knew that, but we just kind of got fooled that year that he played for the Warriors. And ever since then, we saw what happened in Brooklyn. They couldn't even make the playoffs. And now he goes all the way to Phoenix, and they lose in the first round 4-0.
I just think he has too thin a skin. He's always checking his X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. He's arguing with people on that. He's arguing with sports writers. Dude, it's just playing a game. If you're as good as you think you are, those guys are look like fools at the end of the day. So just don't read their crap. It's just ridiculous.
Go do your thing on the field. That's what Anthony Edwards has done. He has quickly become a superstar in this league. And in Game 4, to sweep the series, he came out, played 41 minutes, had 40 points, 13 of 23, 9 rebounds, 6 assists. This guy is the real deal. I saw him play for a year down in Athens, playing for Georgia. And, man, he is just turned into a phenomenal basketball player.
Well, that's what they said the other day. I mean, I was listening to some of the pundits about the NBA, and I know we all, Steph is still around, LeBron's still around, Durant's still around, but this new generation is starting to flex their muscles, and it's going to be interesting to see who will be the king, who is going to get the crown once LeBron is gone. That's going to be very interesting because there's a lot of contenders out there to take over for the, I don't know if we should change it to the GOAT of all time or the GOAT of this time. I mean, it's like who's going to be the GOAT for the next decade? It's going to be interesting to watch. You going to do a show this Sunday?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're going to talk about the draft a little bit more, and also discuss, wrap up some of the spring practice. So I think we're going to try and shoot for a little man coverage on Sunday morning.
All right. Enjoy the weekend. It's getting a little hot up here, so we'll see what happens. Hopefully my back feels better so I can start moving around a little bit. But we will be back next week. Nate, have a great weekend, and I will talk to you next week.
Sounds good, buddy. Thank you.
Bye.